Hello, this is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, I'm so excited to speak weekly with fascinating people in tech. So please subscribe on YouTube. I want your comments. I want your opinions. I want your reactions on topic I'm discussing with brilliant guests here on the show. And now SaugaTalks, of course, on all the podcasting platforms. So listen or watch or follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and let's have this going, because today I'm extremely privileged. I am talking to Francesco Rulli today. Francesco, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous, because we said we're going to talk about Metaverse. We're going to touch on NFTs, and with your background and with your enormous global reach, I do want to discuss what do you see on your neck of the woods in terms of Metaverse. Is it a new version of internet? Is it just a buzzword? Is it something that we absolutely all have to understand and adapt today?
So let me share with you a little bit of my background of how I got to this role I have now. Back in early 2000s, I started a fashion company with an American actor called John Malkovich. And John was the designer of this company. So his day job was being an actor. He also had a production company, and he was also a film director. He directed a movie called Dancer Upstairs with Javier Bardem right at the beginning of our relationship. And he loved doing sketches of clothing and give each one of those garments a name. And there was a role in this, right? There was a role on who was the person that would be wearing it, but also the role of the character itself. So we had very particular interesting thing. We had the Taliban coat. We have the nervous breakdown jacket. We had the something called the fucking commie sweater. It was crazy, right? It was like being in a movie. So how he saw fashion was each one of those garments was a character of a play, right? Then at the end of our relationship back in 2004, we were talking about the film distribution space, and he inspired me to start a company called Filmonics. Filmonics was the equivalent of today's YouTube, and we launched at the same time of YouTube in the beginning of 2005. Very successful venture. And then one day, NATO contacted me and asked me to actually distribute their content. I actually thought it was a spam. And the National Atlantic Treaty Organization handed over to us over 2,000 videos of their peacekeeping efforts. And I saw one day a video of a woman building a school in Afghanistan. So I reached out to her, and this was already 2011. So 5-6 years into this Filmonics project. The company was booming. We had 40 million uniques per month. We're doing very well. We had great independent films, and now we're starting to get into the peacekeeping/military space with this content. And I had the idea to build schools in Afghanistan. So I sponsored the construction of 13 classrooms and schools in Afghanistan, mostly west of Afghanistan. And right away, we saw one problem. The young women, because we're focused on sponsoring digital education for women, for girls, they didn't have a platform for themselves to monetize, right? So they could learn how to blog, they could learn how to make videos, but to get financial self-efficiency, they needed a platform. So we started building a platform called Bitlanders, and we started paying them in Bitcoin in 2013. Okay. So in 2013, we started that. I have here a book. It's called The Age of Cryptocurrency, written by two journalists, Paul Vigna from the Wall Street Journal and Michael Casey, still from the Wall Street Journal. Then eventually Michael will become, as it is now, an advisor to the MIT blockchain department, or let's say institution, and then also the chief editor for CoinDesk. Mm-hmm. So we started realizing that we did have the characters, we had the girls, we had the content, but we didn't have a platform, right? And I think that that was a decision we did in 2013 to pay them in Bitcoin. It was a form of getting them financially self-efficient in what we thought was at that time the metaverse. Okay. Now there are social media platforms like Instagram, like Snapchat, Facebook, and a lot of this is all about likes and support from a media perspective. But it's very hard to monetize this content, right? Unless you get your separate and independent sponsorships, or you get a small percentage of what the YouTubers make with the traffic, right? So I think the new metaverse, it's a more active role where there is an economy that it's more beneficiary to those who participate to the metaverse itself. So my journey was from collaborating with a visionary, that is John Malkovich, into how you can build a world of characters, facing a problem that was a young women in Afghanistan. How do you make them financially self-efficient? And both those led into one thing, that if there was a platform that is today is called the metaverse, where all those people can basically transfer their souls and their creativity and their operation and their work, and also make it financially efficient for themselves, then there would be really almost like a replica of what we consider our regular normal life today. So that's a little bit my background and how I got into this space, right? It was more for social responsibility reasons than anything else.
Fantastic, fantastic. More we learn what metaverse means nowadays, it's really important to define the terms in my mind, okay? Because, Facebook on that way again, right? Microsoft playing a part, all the smaller companies, of course, want a piece of it, because guess what? Venture capitalists investing, right? We're seeing numbers, billions of dollars that, that segment of industry should expect as investment. So can we, in very simple terms, explain, because what you're saying is the experience of early internet and monetizing the work that, in digital economy, for creators, for entrepreneurs, for everyone who is actually right able to contribute to society. But in my mind, metaverse, maybe I'm reading too much of their own thing right now, but to me it's all about augmented reality, it's all about virtual, it's all about immersive. So where is this bridge that you see from very applicable, improving human life kind of application to this high-end kind of glitzy and all imaginative, universe that we're reading about?
Okay, so I'll try to. I have two parts of me. One is to be in the technology space and look at 2 + 2 is 4, and then 4 + 4 is 8. The other part is the spiritual side of thinking. What leads to success is a form of almost religious belief into a system or a brand, right? So the success of Apple, the success of Amazon, the success of even platforms like Facebook, it has been this trust that you build into the system, right? And there is one aspect about who we are. Is our soul going to survive our bodies or not? So a lot of people find themselves stuck into a body and into a certain lifestyle, and they then necessarily know if this is what they prefer, right? So when you start engaging on games, so since you're a little kid, if you're a boy, usually engage in the games with the little soldiers, right? Girls, maybe they play with dolls. In today's world, there is more fluidity, so there is a diversity of behaviors. But you suddenly start thinking, how would I behave? And I have 3 boys, and I see what they do when they play video games. They change themselves, right? Sometimes they play dressing in outfits that I would never imagine them to do. The other day, my 14-year-old invited me to see his Ferrari. And on top of the Ferrari, he had this thing like a tool box with all his tools inside, almost like if he's a carpenter. And he was proud that he built police station. And then he told me someone else built a tower on top of his police station, right? So he is experimenting something that is not him. He's, in the first year of high school, and he's not supposed to drive a Ferrari. He's not supposed to build a police station, but he's already interacting in that through this video game that is a form of metaverse, okay? So the irony of it is that for years I told my kids, play less video games. And now I find myself pushing institutions like the Florence Cathedral Museum behind me, the Duomo of Florence, to be in the metaverse, all right? And to have an active role in that space. And we even built the artificial intelligence of Michelangelo. We're launching shortly the artificial intelligence of the David as a biblical character, and also as a subject of the famous statue of Michelangelo. And we find ourselves to empower avatars to be actually characters of this metaverse, so that not only you can express yourself, maybe because of your soul, you want to be something different from what you are and you want to play the game, but also because now you can meet other characters of history, and that you can start lingering to those monuments, and maybe engage with the content, and maybe even donate money, time, or purchase NFTs to support the patronage of those institutions. And that's where it leads to what we have been doing in the last few months.
Fantastic, fantastic. You have this ability, rare ability, linking far-reach kind of dream of humankind, right, to reinventing ourselves every day. The example with your son is amazing, because we all want to play a little game here and there, right? But the important part is to express ourselves, right? To realize what we're capable of. And I guess this gaming, right, the new environments, the new possibilities will create better, right, better versions ourselves in whatever way we're willing to experiment.
Yeah, in fact, I give you an example. We know each other through our common friend Boris, and Boris is a great seller, and I've been selling with my kids, and it's a couple of years now. I pay them at the end of the season. I have a deal. If I owe you $50, I'll pay you double if you take Bitcoin. And because I kind of got them into the environment of the cryptocurrencies with a little money from their communion money or their selling money, they follow cryptocurrency, they are involved in cryptocurrency, and they are minting their own NFTs. They know more about NFT platforms than I do sometimes. And I see sometimes it's just giving the opportunity to people, young or older, to understand that there is another world out there, and that's a metaverse. And you could say that LinkedIn is a metaverse. You could say that Facebook is a metaverse. What it is now gamified, right? So once we transfer our picture on LinkedIn into an avatar that moves around and invites people into a room, that's going to be a more common idea of what the metaverse is. But basically, we are ready into this type of metaverse. We're just not connecting the dots of how to monetize that. And I think NFTs is the perfect tool, because the reason why I had to stop giving Bitcoin to Afghan women was the BIT license. There was a required license in New York State that forced someone like me to do KYC, know your customer, into communities of people that were supposed to stay anonymous. I don't want to know anybody's name. I just want to judge them from their content and provide them a financial stability. That's what cryptocurrency is for. And suddenly I was like, no, you can't now do that, because what if you send money to the daughter or the son of a Taliban, right? So suddenly I had to pull the plug on that financial infrastructure we built. And now with NFTs arriving, now we have a different approach. And the irony of it is that we might be issuing one day NFTs for the art of Afghanistan, who is actually under the domain of the Taliban regime. So, now you have these economies. It's almost like issuing individual currencies. It's not so different from what are, at the end of the day, the points of the airlines, but the technology difference is that they are decentralized, so they have their life on their own. So it's a series of new currencies that are defined by digital assets that can be in part present in what we call metaverse, or simply gamify our own lives. That's
Yeah,
more.
and which roles will play individually, right, in this new universe? Because to me, NFTs, it's either you're an artist, or you're a buyer, or you're a
Yes.
collector, or you're just an observer. Maybe you're none of the above, right? So how this role will be changing, you think, for each?
So we built the concept and a company called Patronage NFT. So for us, the most important thing is what you do with the money, or what you do with your assets in terms of influence. So what we usually do, we collaborate with institutions and we ask what are the patronage initiatives, what they need funding for. So for example, the Florence Cathedral Museum has initiatives in restoration, maintenance, or ongoing education programs. And possibly as a fourth layer is the creation and the growth of the endowment of the institution. Okay. So once we assign the purpose of the money, then we scout and we define what are the assets that are ideal to support that mission. Okay. So there is many different ways to define what an NFT can be, but there is also other ways to define what you do with the financial rewards of the NFT, or the let's say the digital asset value of this NFT, because you might never even monetize that and use it as a barter tool or a licensing tool. So the goal for us is first to identify the patronage purpose, the second to identify the assets, and the third build a strategy to go to market, not for sale or for sale or for licensing, and use the revenues, if any, because some institutions could opt to hold the assets without selling it for a certain time period. And then once you monetize them, use the money for the purpose in which that NFT was intended. And that's why we call it the patronage NFT.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, going back to your unique experience in Afghanistan, because you were ahead of the time for sure, right,
Yes.
in early 2000s. I would really love to know how people can jump on that wagon in a way that celebrities can monetize their tweets now, right? But they're celebrities. They're part of, you know, more traditional media anyways, right? And this way, they don't need this big breakout. What about, right, smaller entrepreneurs? What about people who don't have this huge following anyways, right? What's their way to reach to, you know, what's possible? Because again, it sounds like you have to start somewhere.
Yes. The difficult, basically, it's just like any fundraising or crowdsourcing initiative. You need to build a community of people that understand the value of the asset, and you have to build a currency or a type of asset that speaks to them. Okay. So if we're doing an initiative of funding for people in the arts, we have to focus on the type of content that will be appreciated by that community, right? So a classical image of a monument like the one behind me might not work for everybody. So there are people that will appreciate a picture of Piazza del Duomo in Florence as it is. Other people will want to have the 3D version rendering of this institution, right? Others will appreciate a complete reinterpretation, right? So we were, for example, thinking about creating new facades of the Duomo on a digital version, so that contemporary artists or architects could contribute with something completely crazy, maybe landing pads for drones on the terraces of the Duomo that are right here, right here, for example. So there are different ways to engage with the community. Not all work, right? So there could be that the people that are more in love with the institution are less prone to invest in NFTs, and they prefer to stay on the side of donating money. But basically, the NFT space is almost like a space where in the patronage industries, you transform a donor into an investor. But you can also go through the other way to take an investor and explain them the values of the patronage and transform an investor into a passionate donor who could have some upsides on the secondary market down the road, all right? The Florence Cathedral Museum is a 725 years institution. And its mission has been from day one, the maintenance and the upkeep of the Cathedral of Florence. So for us, as partners, and also I have a role within this institution, is a normal thing to think we have to think about the next 700 years. And NFTs are a form of eternal source of income, basically, because every time you take an NFT and you sell it on the secondary market, you can actually program that NFT to bring back a piece of the value to the institution that issued the NFTs. So you could issue an NFT today, and 100, 200, 300 years from now, if this NFT continues to trade into the secondary market, continues to bring financial sustainability to the institution that issued that, well beyond the time in which we will be alive. So that's also another aspect in which I find extremely important, is this patronage that goes in, basically continues in history.
Absolutely. I spoke not so long ago with Enrico Molinari about how AI, right, and technology will help us to preserve our cultural heritage. And
Yes.
you offering really, right, the financial way to look into the future. And yes, in 700 years, we hope people will see the same beauty that we see right now, and even, yes, improved one. So what a terrific work. Thank you. Thank you, Francesco, for bringing this up. Can we go back to Metaverse, maybe? I know we're using these terms interchangeably because they are connected, right? But I want to bring to the very simple everyday conversation, okay? People still don't know how I will use Metaverse for my work, okay? What are the use cases that are a little more tangible than just immersing ourselves into some new universes and some new worlds that we're not aware of? I mean, do you have any examples that we can share?
Yeah, definitely. Especially now that there is certain restrictions in traveling, or even the simple fact we discovered that commuting to work is not the best way to invest a large amount of the time.
And not fun anymore.
And
Definitely
it's
not
not
fun.
fun anymore. I think that the metaverse companies and institutions that will organize themselves to create an interactive environment in a metaverse approach, so that also our avatars or our personal replicas can participate with a different angle and approach in life. It's going to be very interesting. Not all the time you are compelled to work 9 to 5, right? So there is times in which you're looking for informations where the office is closed, or the people that you want to communicate with, they are in such a different time zone. So the opportunity to be into a metaverse and empower a form of artificial intelligence to cover certain conversations or actions in your behalf is actually extremely valuable from a time's sake perspective. I remember a friend of mine, she took a job with a very large software company that she was in charge of a big job with Southeast Asia all the way to China. And she was based in New York. So the amount of sleep she lost to be up and going was incredible. Nobody really forced her to be working on the time zones, but the reality is like you have to have that type of interaction at least a couple of times a week. And if you start having the habit to be at 11 o'clock, midnight on the phone with someone in China, now suddenly you have a problem because you're losing sleep. and they are getting used to you, or vice versa. They have to get used to your time zone, right? And the irony of it just comes down to the fact that those markets are becoming so meaningful to American companies that it used to be the people abroad staying up late. Now it goes the other way around, right? So that the Americans have to stay. So it's so the metaverse is an environment where a lot of this can be resolved, you know, and obviously leveraging artificial intelligence will allow also to keep a duly record of the questions and the answers and the knowledge base that you need to run a business, a global business, or even better, a metaverse business. Okay. When we built the artificial intelligence on Michelangelo, we thought that we're just going to answer people that want to meet Michelangelo. But if I have a metaverse with my company, I can actually invite Michelangelo to be right there, in which it doesn't have anything to say much about maybe doesn't have a contribution about our conversation on, let's say, on NFTs at that specific moment. But then he's also a very relevant character of history to communicate with, all right? So suddenly you start having a metaverse, which is your business metaverse, with the option to make it even more as a platform for learning and broadening the horizons, right? So it's interesting because the division between business, personal, and spiritual, they're not that much anymore, right? So everything is kind of coming together, and unfortunately, we gotta admit it, the metaverse is a much more flexible environment because you can go from being something you are not to actually streamline your job and make it as entertaining and as engaging worldwide, and maybe even while you're sleeping, you know?
Exactly. And with a lot of advantages, let's touch a little bit on disadvantages, because I read about addiction.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
If you, become your digital avatar, what about privacy concerns, right? What about impact on the job market? Because people may want to, become a little more digital than companies ready to admit. So what are your comments on the disadvantages we have to face?
So, in fact, the irony of it is like, when you get a car, you have a very powerful machine to go to the grocery store, to go to vacation, but you can also run someone over. You can actually, crash your car and kill someone or kill yourself. So power comes with responsibility and vice versa, right? And being on the metaverse is actually almost like learning how to drive your life in a new car. Okay. And you needed to be educated. You needed to have disciplines about who you want to be and how you want to run that life. I am extremely disappointed by the fact that most video games, they're based on killing, right? I find it unacceptable. It's true. Human nature is to be afraid of death and to defeat death with death itself. So we are fascinated by movies that have a lot of killing. We're fascinated by video games that have a lot of killing, torture, misbehavior, offensive characters. And that disappoints me. That's also a little bit of the motivation why I want to bring what I know as the Renaissance, being from Florence, into those environments and transform a killing ground into also an educational ground, so that hopefully more people get fascinated by the masterpiece of artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Ghiberti, Luca and Marco della Robbia, and understand that humans are not just built for killing each other on those metaverse and games, but it's also about supporting each other and patronage and looking to the past to build a better future. So this is very important is for institutions to provide the opportunity for people to enjoy the metaverse as if they were driving a car or going into a town and creating a pleasant environment and not an environment of warfare. So that's my humble opinion.
I'm glad you brought up the point of education, Because absolutely all these new opportunities and possibilities to enrich the world of education in every way and maybe get kids and adults interested in certain things that they would not see in our 2D 3D world. So
Yeah.
there's huge, absolutely endless opportunities. Wonderful. What about environmental impact? Because people saying, right? Yeah.
So the environment is an interesting challenge because there are definitely contradictions in the crypto space with an incredible amount of energy being used to mine or to coin crypto and blockchain based products. From a philosophical perspective, I feel like humans strive to surpass each other every second, every single moment of their life, right? So some people are more lazy than others, so some people are more motivated than others. But I think curiosity is what keeps us running, right? I love the concept that as soon as you're born, you start to die. So the only reason why you go through a life of productivity is this enthusiasm and optimism that is part of humankind. Obviously, there are some exceptions, right? But the majority of humans strive to surpass themselves. So the irony of it is that these crypto calculations, an incredible amount of energy put into that, has been the new focus, almost taking away the energy that we used to put into warfare. So, the warfare space, and I have to admit it, I think that what we call the military today is going to be completely different tomorrow, right? So what we did actually today, I think, is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, the attack at Pearl Harbor. So the energy to build a ship, a warship, the energy to build a warhead is going to be transformed into calculations of something very, very complex, right? And this energy will be transferring to that, so we'll have less energy for, let's put it this way, the traditional way of showing progress. And the environment here is going to suffer because of the gas fees of these new calculations, but it's also going to be a little bit easier to control because we can actually optimize the way that we create energy. So, I hope that moving away from carbon-based energy into more clean energy is going to be the solution. And I would imagine that the crypto space is going to be a huge motivation because the amount of intellectual power in that space brings us to the position where we are, right? So companies like Tesla, for example, they've been extremely powerful, not just in the innovation side, but also into the judgment of what the crypto space is. And a little crazy how Elon Musk got involved into Dogecoin, Bitcoin, up and down, comments. But there is a link that comes together, all right? And we all have to make certain decisions. I think going at the crypto space version is going to be funneling the energy, the mental energy, and the computer power energy into developing those extremely sophisticated codes that per se they are just total waste of energy, but they also allow us to consolidate what is considered today's value. Because today's value in the traditional way, and I'm kind of saying something by instinct, is digging a hole in the ground to look for oil or gold. And that's kind of like trigger a certain level of slavery or a certain level of mechanical behavior that it depends on which country. It changes completely the paradigm of values. Instead of when you do that in the blockchain, it's actually an open game. Anybody can participate. And that's true. You could use more or less energy, but the human slavery side is not going to be as affected because really humans cannot help you to increase this crypto complexity. It's basically pushing artificial intelligence forward tremendously. I don't have an opinion yet about which one is the best blockchain for NFTs, but I believe that using different platforms and balancing what we see the gas fees to be higher to lower and providing these different layers of service will allow us to get forward in the next couple of years and to define what is the best way also for the environment.
Thank you, Francesco. This is enormously enriching talk. Thank you so very much. Can we maybe finish with few takeaways? I love to leave for audience, little, some thoughts to take away from this conversation, because we did start with Metaverse. We talked about NFTs for creators, for buyers, right? The opportunity for artists and other creators being discovered, right? And overall for work life, for our entertainment, right? What kind of effect it will have. So few takeaways from you, it will be very precious.
Well, I first of all, I want to suggest people to get involved in the crypto space with the small, constant investments. Not go in there and invest a lot of money, buy a lot of NFTs or crypto, but to come up with a budget of $5, $50, $500, whatever you can actually afford, not to worry about, to get involved. Because if you don't own any, there is no motivation for you to learn this new space. Okay. The second is to focus on patronage, not to focus on becoming rich, but to look at crypto and NFTs and Metaverse as a tool to make this a better world. So this is now the classic capitalist approach. Oh, I have to beat everybody. I have to be ahead of everybody. It's not just for the sake of innovation. I would prioritize to make this a better world, right? And then involve young people to share their opinions, to see where they appreciate what we're doing and where we are probably going a little too far, and make sure that their minds are not getting too hijacked from what is the priorities: to have a good life, enjoy the environment, have a healthy life, and exactly take your sailing boat and go out there and sail, instead of staying at home playing a video game, right? So the irony of it, and I want to say this: artificial intelligence and technology is supposed to help us to be happier and not to be unhappier, right? So the bottom line, I can see with my kids, they enjoy so much the video games, but they are so much happier when they're away from the screen, and they achieve the physical achievements help a lot the mind. So we can have our avatars play video games with AI in the metaverse, have that kind of like fulfillment, just like watching a fictional movie, right? And on the other side, we can get back to the ground and say, hey, I need to breathe X amount of times for every minute. I need to be able to make the stairs up and down, And I think a fantastic movie to watch is Wall-E, is a Disney movie about how the future could be. And that takes a lot into my mind of saying, let's be careful how we treat the earth we are. Because if not, we end up on that spaceship and we're not even able to walk around.
No one wants that, right? We do want to see sunlight. So excellent point you brought, right? We need fresh air to function, right? To fulfill ourselves. Exactly. Away from the screen, away from the technology, for sure. For sure. I would love next time, Francesco, to touch on how young people can get on board with this, because right now a lot of them just consuming technology, right? What kind of professions, what kind of opportunities, how they should, adapt to this future, because future is theirs. All right, we've done what we could, right? But at the time, they need to be really comfortable in this universe. And again, not forgetting that they do need sunlight from time to time. So, Francesco, thank you. Thank you so very much. I do hope you'll find time to be on SaugaTalks again, because I love this conversation. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thank you, Irene.